our next speakers are going to be discussing building your digital footprint with NFTs. Give them a round of applause. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
How's everyone doing? Thank you. We appreciate it. So I'm Cooper. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at a company called Galaxy. I'm going to try to be a little bit of our moderator today. Maybe we'll start off with, do you want to tell us about yourself and what your project does?
Absolutely. So I'm Jasun Tate, CEO and founder of Black Alchemy Solutions Group. We're a cyber crisis management firm. We fix problems that are unfixable. You call us before you call your lawyers or your police officers, and we negotiate situations. More specifically, our focus is in emphasizing the importance of understanding the risk in the threat landscape that we have in Web3 and all of the traditional spaces of your pattern of life, so to speak. And that's what we do.
That makes sense. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about what you do?
Yes, hello, my name is Maika Isogawa. I'm the CEO and founder of Webacy. We manage your digital assets for the unexpected. And the unexpected can mean anything from loss of access to your wallet, like you forget your seed phrase or you forget your password, to things like death. We do crypto wills and things like that as well.
That's awesome. And yeah, I work at Galaxy. We're a project founded by Spencer Dinwiddie, who actually used to be on the Brooklyn Nets. He's now on the Dallas Mavericks in the NBA. We're a social token and NFT platform for content creators, celebrities. So the idea is you can buy into assets backed by your favorite celebrities and redeem them for familiar and novel experiences like video calls, direct messages, chats, unique rewards, or merchandise and swag. So I'm sure we have, you guys' projects are a little bit more similar than mine. I'm a little bit more on the application side and the building side, but I'd be curious, what does kind of your footprint mean to you in this context?
That's a good question. I think a lot of us are getting familiar with assimilating ourselves in the digital space. We have so much of our identity, so much of our pattern of life being pushed into the digital space that we're forgetting how important our identity is as a physical asset, or as a personal asset. So building a digital footprint, in my opinion, requires you to understand that it's important to secure it, to understand what you're putting out there, how much, we're living in a space where blockchain technology is going to be permanent. It's always, that record's going to be there. So what we do, how we interact, how we expose our weaknesses and expose vulnerabilities of ourselves is really important. So building a footprint is great. Securing it or building it with security in mind is really important, in my opinion.
That makes sense. And so for you, your footprint really is about like all of your online interactions, whether they may or may not be connected to a blockchain, or do you guys focus exclusively on Web3?
No. We're at 360-degree security. So whether or not you have anything to do with technology, a vast majority of our clients are politicians and lawyers and celebrities, and they have issues. They have questions that people are not asking. So to your question, it's not specifically for Web3. We're 360 degrees. We want to raise that elevation of awareness to say, hey, listen, not only are we exposing ourselves, and it's an opt-in society, everybody wants you to, connect your wallet, get on our platform, do these things. We want you to understand that when you do these things, there are risks. And as you as you interpret these risks, you apply the right safeguards to ensure that you have the maximum amount of safety.
That makes a lot of sense. I feel like we'll circle back to some of the unique challenges that Web3 kind of presents in that context. But what does a digital footprint mean to you? And like, how does that kind of culminate into your users and what you're trying to build?
Yeah, I think very similar sentiment to Jason. But I actually grew up in that weird middle between millennials and Gen Z, kind of zillennial. The line that I draw for myself is I don't have TikTok on my phone.
I can relate.
Yeah, I can't handle that kind of distraction. But I think my generation and the generations after me, all of our digital footprints are now actually just representations of us to the world. So I grew up, curating Instagram. Now I'm on Twitter, all these different things that many people around me have developed. And this is kind of the way and the touch point that most people you connect with over time see your life. Because really in your day-to-day, you're only interacting with maybe your friends and your closest family members. And so your digital footprint is becoming so much more than what you think it is. It's all of your accounts. But now with blockchain, there's opportunity for so much more, like your history, all of your interactions, the things you own to be represented on chain, right? So Webacy, we're not completely just Web3. We also manage social media accounts and all kinds of digital assets for the unexpected. So that's where we wrap it in, because we know that there needs to be more security, more management tools in the blockchain space as well as everything else digital.
That makes a lot of sense. You know, at Galaxy, we're kind of a social media application, right? Like, it's a way to engage with celebrities and influencers, and they have a direct connection with their audience. And then we kind of slip crypto and Web3 under the covers, where like you go to someone's profile page, you know, they're a verified celebrity. You can actually buy their social tokens right on their page. You can see a list of services, products, swag that they offer. And the way that that kind of manifests as a footprint is that you get a unique picture, not just of like a traditional Web 2 social graph, but you get a Web 3 social graph that has staked interest in terms of payments, in terms of monetization, in terms of engagement. And so Web 3 really gives us the tools to build probably the richest social graph that's ever existed, right? Like, you're not just draining likes, right? Like, a like is a subjective meaning, but with Web3 and their footprint, you can actually assign a dollar value, assign a net worth, and it builds a much richer history of people's footprints and where they actually spend their time and money. But maybe I'll kind of change it up and go back to you, and like, now thinking about how you think about footprints, where does NFTs fit into that picture? Is it just like someone who owns a Bored Ape dies? How does their family recover the Bored Ape? Or like, what's your NFT strategy or play, and why do people come to you for NFTs?
Yeah, we're starting with NFTs actually, and NFTs surprisingly are, I think there's a few numbers done on it, maybe 1% of the entire crypto market, which is teeny tiny. And if you think about the stage of where NFTs are, we're really in the early stages where we haven't reached or even imagined what NFTs could be, right? So right now it's art, collectibles, they could count as tickets. But at this point, we're looking to the future where NFTs represent things like the home that you own, or perhaps, you know, soul-bound NFTs, if that becomes a thing. It could be your college degree represented online. And as these things become represented as non-fungible tokens, things that do not change, those need to be protected and brought forward, not only through your crypto will, but just in general. Because if you lose access to your wallet, you lose access to everything, all of your histories online. So that's where WebAC is placing ourselves, is creating a safer Web3, better tools for users, for companies, because as NFTs become more important, more valuable, there just needs to be more security, because right now it's not where it needs to be.
Yeah, I'm sure anyone in the Bored Ape community can relate to that. And you mentioned soul-bound tokens. We might circle back to there, because it is a new, interesting primitive for managing your digital footprint.
I would love your opinion on that.
I have a lot of hot takes about soul-bound tokens, actually. But you mentioned a crypto will. What is that? What does that look like? Why do people need a crypto will?
Yeah, I think crypto is one asset class that's different from everything else, because you could say you want your kids to have all your crypto in your will, but then how do they get them when you actually pass away? So we already know probate court is a total mess. Will and estate planning is definitely a mess if you're not like having a huge estate as well. And so with crypto specifically, access is different than permission. So with our company, that's kind of where WebAC was, like the inspiration came from, needing to be able to pass on your digital assets, including your crypto. So the way we do it, it's completely no access. We don't take seed phrases. I'm not going to go into the details right now with our time. But it's because we need a better tool to actually transfer the assets. It's not just about law permission and telling someone you can have it. It's about how do we actually transfer those to your beneficiaries. That's what we do.
That makes sense. I mean, I'm definitely in the market of people that might need a crypto will at some point, so I'm sure we can talk about it afterwards. So for you, where do you see NFTs fitting into the picture? Was this like something that came about organically from demand? You know, a lot of clients have issues with NFTs, or do you just see a big market opportunity here?
No, so NFTs landed on us. Most of our clients, they were, dealing in the space, or they had issues with their security. They had a big breach, or they were having issues with their mental stability. They thought that these cyber exploitation attempts or these attacks that were happening on them were really taking them off their center. So our company, the name Black Alchemy, we transmute things. We transmute fear into reality. So how we got into NFTs, one of our main clients told us that they were interested. They're like, hey, we want to get into NFTs. My business partner had just told me about NFTs, and this is like 2 years ago, and we aped in, however that means. But when we really started to embrace and understand the vulnerabilities and risks, because there's so much value in NFTs, and people are carrying these multi-million-dollar wallets and not understanding that they're a target. And our situation, as it happened, was our client was targeted surgically, precision. Like a group of people were targeting, and they actually got access to this person, and we said, hey, there's a whole bunch of sheep out here that are really being exploited. They're taking in all of the wonderness of NFTs and all the beauty of Web3, but they're not understanding the risk that comes about when you're dealing with, you know, high volume transactions and extremely valuable assets. So that's how we got into the market.
That makes sense. And, you know, with customers coming to you, talking about the challenges, kind of some of the pitfalls of self-custody, what do you say to those people? Like, do you tell them, you know, hey, it might not be a good idea to get into NFTs? Or I guess, you know, going back to the name of the panel, do you encourage them to pursue NFTs as a way to build their following, build their portfolio, build, you know, their quote-unquote digital footprint?
Well, I think the approach that we take initially is to educate, to raise the understanding, like, this is a technology first and foremost. There's a lot of misunderstood interpretations of what NFTs are. So educating them on how it works and, you know, how crypto actually works and sinks in with their pattern of life is first. And then, of course, we don't like to do the whole, you know, the sky is falling approach, but educating them also in the risk they're about to assume, so that when they do build their social network, or the importance of having, you know, their social media of the legacy times be hygienically scrubbed to ensure that they don't have duplicates out there. You know, that's why we have situations where people are getting rugged or, you know, hustled with, you know, false Discord links, getting them to understand that those vulnerabilities and risks are impacting the community that they want to build, and that therefore it's important for them to ensure that they have all of the safeguards in place to minimize the risk to their community. Because when you have people that are establishing NFT projects, or you have people that are a part of a community, I believe that it's the NFT community's, one of their main purposes or sole functions is to educate their user base to all the risk associated with it. Because people are putting their lives into place. You know, they're putting their life savings. They're putting, you know, whether or not good or bad or indifferent, they're putting a lot of faith in this technology. So when you have vulnerabilities, and from a social footprint perspective or a digital footprint perspective, you look at, you know, if you have a celebrity and they have a multitude of fans who have fan pages, who use those fan pages to write tweets about going to another Discord server where they get a mint that's, you know, or a duplicate mint site, that's important to educate and say, hey, I don't want that in my space, let's go ahead and clean that out. So we try to give a 360-degree awareness of all of their, you know, threat landscape for them, and that helps a lot. Because I think that's where the future is at.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not only kind of post-hoc, oh shit, something bad happened. You really try to get in advance and educate your customers on, you know, potentially bad decisions, you know, connecting different MetaMask wallets, or the importance of having multiple wallets, not reusing addresses, not reusing private keys, to try to get ahead of the potential problems. And if something does happen, you know, you're kind of on the other end of that as well.
Right. It's going to sound funny coming from a business perspective, but it doesn't, for us, I mean, even in our business model, the name says it all, Black Alchemy. We want to show people their own magic, their own capability to perpetuate safety, you know, security and assurance. So we don't really have long-term retainers or relationships. I figure if I can bring a client in, or if we could bring a client in, educate them on their level, on their pattern of life, how they see the world, how they see the digital sphere, how they see NFTs, and speak to them in that manner and give them the tactics, techniques, and protocols of security they will understand for themselves as they go out and tell other people about the space, so they will speak security into existence instead of them finding it out on the back end. And I think that's what a lot of users are doing.
That makes sense. It's like, oh, I wasn't supposed to put my 12 words into the random Google form.
Right, exactly, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, no, it definitely happens. I don't mean to dismiss anyone who's lost funds or access to their tokens. You know, at Galaxy, we see NFTs as one of the most innovative and exciting tools to engage with your communities. Going back to that kind of financial worldview of a social graph and building a much richer social graph, you know, dollars can speak a lot of volume towards how much you care about an individual person, but there's kind of layers to it, right? You know, $1,000 to someone isn't $1,000 to someone else on the other side of the world. But if someone's willing to make their profile picture an NFT from someone's collection, that really shows how aligned they are with these people, with these communities, and another layer that you can actually add into people's social graphs, right? Like, you can have a hierarchy of needs and a hierarchy of people who care about you. Level 1's following you on social media. Level 2 could be buying into your social token. Level 3 could actually be buying your NFTs. And level 4 could be actually setting your profile picture to one of those NFTs. And these are all different ways that you can build a graph that reflects how much people care about you and how much people care about your community. And so I think, for me, as a CTO, as someone building these projects, it's helpful to try to educate people in your world and kind of your perspective into this is just one new tool of ways that you can create a proxy or a way in which you can quantify how much people care about you, right? Like, we work with my founders in the NBA, we work with a lot of NFL players. Maybe, we're working towards a world where if you actually hold an Ezekiel Elliott or a Dallas Cowboys NFT, maybe you're top of the list for buying season tickets, right? Like, they can't pay for that level of brand loyalty and commitment. And if you're willing to have your PFP be a Dallas Cowboys NFT all year, you're probably a bigger advocate and more deserving to get into the front of the line for season tickets when they do become available. And so that's how I kind of think about the world and how I try to educate people about NFTs. They're just kind of one new tool in a broad set of tools by which you can engage, interact, and have a more intimate relationship, with people who care about you. So, obviously I'm super excited about what we're doing.
As well you should be.
Thank you. We recently announced that we raised $26 million 2 weeks ago, so very, very, very exciting. Thank you. So to someone who doesn't know really what a digital footprint even is, right? Someone who is completely oblivious to the fact that they've been building a social profile online forever that Google's been following wherever they go. What advice would you have to them? Just generally about having a social footprint, but also about where NFTs fit into that.
I mean, ignorance is bliss, right? It's kind of scary to think about all the data that's out in the world, but one thing about the companies that we have today that aren't on-chain, like our traditional Web2 companies, it's a little bit separated. It's not like Google talks to Facebook because they're competitive. So they don't have a complete picture of who you are, which is one great thing. With blockchain, though, if you have your identity tied to your interactions online, if you have an ENS, that kind of thing, you start to have kind of a centralized version of all of the data you have, right? And so it's kind of an advertiser's wet dream to be able to see exactly who does what kind of thing. And so when it comes to NFTs, you're also, if you choose to tie it to your identity, you have to know that all of these things are public, right? If I have a certain NFT that supports one concept, that's public, right? I'm part of an Asian, AAPI supportive DAO, and that is visible to the world. But then there's the other side of crypto that's, you can have a pseudonym, you can have privacy, right? And so we're coming to that place where government regulations are trying to take that away, but there's a kind of green space when it comes to identity and NFTs, but you just have to be aware that everything you do on-chain is visible, and you have to think about that history over time, but it's also very powerful.
That makes sense, and I feel like identity is kind of one of the buzzwords of the week or the couple of months. What does identity in this context mean to you? Is it just wallet ownership? Is it things like ENS? Is it things like soulbound tokens? And kind of how does that come into the education required to let people know the impact that binding their ENS might have, or joining a specific diversity DAO or demographic of DAO might have to people doxing them, people trying to follow them? What would you say to those people? And what does identity mean to you in this context?
I mean, we don't want to talk about KYC, so I'm going to avoid that topic.
We can if you want to. I'm not saying we can't.
I'll avoid it. I don't want to talk about it.
I'll take it.
Yeah, you can talk about it. But yeah, no, actually, back in the day, in 2014, that's when I first got interested in blockchain, because I'm a dual citizen. I've traveled, I've lived all over the world, and I've had a lot of issues with things like opening a bank account, registering a phone number, because you have so many paperwork things to do to verify yourself online. And so blockchain is super exciting because it could potentially change the way we get identified in the world. So that's how I first got into crypto. But I think we're very far from that kind of crazy dream of it all working, having a chip in our arm, very much movie-like.
That's a dream?
Is it happening?
Is it not yours?
Let me know, yeah. But yeah, I think it could be soulbound tokens. I think there's we're very far. Vitalik's paper is very, has got a lot of good concepts, but there's no technical meat underlying with the actual implementation of it. So I think it's on its way. There's a lot of learning to do before that, but I think it's a great potential, a lot of issues built into that, just because as human beings, we always find a way to mess things up. So that we just have to kind of build some guardrails in there.
Yeah, and for anyone who hasn't read the Decentralized Society paper from Vitalik and actually the head of identity at Microsoft, it dropped, 3 weeks ago now, something like that, about a new NFT standard that's actually called soulbound tokens. Not really a whole new idea, right? It's an NFT that can't be transferred, but it does require an opt-in and opt-out model where people can basically give you a soulbound token. You can't transfer it, but if you want to, you should be able to burn it. I'm not a huge advocate of soulbound tokens. I think that there's a lot of privacy implications, especially with your digital footprint. I'm a big believer in kind of the decentralized identity space, particularly with encrypted verifiable credentials, and which is kind of the other end of the spectrum from soulbound tokens. But there's unique tools and ways that we can kind of use those things together and use verifiable credentials as a privacy preserving mechanism for your digital footprint. And so kind of the juxtaposition between soulbound tokens and kind of these other identity solutions is very relevant to how much people end up exposing of who they are and their, what they do. What advice do you have to people who should be conscious of their digital footprint, right, and want to get into NFTs?
So I like to answer that question with a little bit of how I'm going to express the lens of exploitation of where I see things. I spent 20 years working for a 3-letter intelligence agency, tracking down cyber criminals. That's what I did. I spent 20 years doing that. And then, and this is important, and then I decided in my grand infinite wisdom to go work in corporate America for a small company called Experian. So I was their chief information security officer.
Really small company.
Very tiny company. All they do is just take digital information about everybody, every one of their clients, and they tell people that they're a credit agency. This is important. So I left after a year because I realized I was working for an engine that was counter to what my soul believed in. Selling digital identities, digital insights, the marketing stuff, but I felt as if I was selling out to corporate America. So now we move into the NFT space, and I see the same thing. I see a lot of people, same from the Web 2 space where they were, social media, they have no real cognizance of the things, the trackings, the insights, the manipulation that is happening to them while they go into these spaces because they're, triggered by dopamine. They're happy. They're getting synthetic feels and synthetic likes, and they're getting synthetic emotions about what they're doing, so they feel compelled to share more. And that's a part of the algorithm. So in the Web3 space, looking at what's going on now, I think that, there's even more. I'm going to use a very deep word here, treachery, in a good way, and I don't mean it negative. I mean, everything has its positive and its negative, but there's more obfuscation, let's use a better word. There's more obfuscation in the agenda of a lot of companies as far as how they collect insights. People should be more aware that now we're dealing with spaces where you don't see your face all the time, but slowly we're migrating into everything, every interaction with every product, every time you connect your wallet, that wallet has insights that is extremely valuable. The metadata, how you move, how you transact, where you've been, those insights are valuable to marketing companies. Those insights are valuable to criminals, and that's who I care about. I'm running a business, so I love business. However, I know the depths of insanity that some cyber criminals will take you to. I know what they're capable of, and a lot of people have never seen that dark side. So in the digital space or in the Web3 space or in the NFT space, it's imperative to understand that, take your time. Slow is fast, and smooth is fast. My apologies. Going really slow, understanding not everything needs to be all the way in. Compartmentalizing your everything that you do. You don't need to have the same wallet for everything because those insights are valuable to other people. And when you're walking around with PFPs that are worth $200,000 or $10,000, there are people that will take that hammer to your head. And I'm not saying this from a book I read. I'm saying this because I've seen it. I've actually, had cases where I'm like, okay, so they tracked you down how? You posted this on Twitter, you did this over here. Oh, that's how they got you that ball in an event that you were and they kidnapped you. Oh, yeah.
Wrench attacks are real.
Yeah, they are real. And they're, the thing is, and let's bring it to the front, let's talk about it, right? NFT.NYC, we're here, we're all having a wonderful time. I love everybody here.
Thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank you all for coming. Thank you for sharing your time and energy. However, what's really important, my team, or the team that we're a group of over here, we just did a video over in the Marquee looking at all of the places. So, you know, I'm the era of DEF CON. I don't know if anybody knows about DEF CON, the hacker conference, where, you know, you go to DEF CON, and I'm going to come back to the Marquee, but you go to DEF CON, and it's full of hackers, thousands of hackers. Oh, time. So anyway, the NFT space right now, NFT.NYC, there's a lot of vulnerabilities and risks that people are not aware of. They're so happy and their dopamine's flowing with, okay, let me go connect here, but they're opening up risks to themselves. So we like closing that door.
That makes sense. Where can people find out more about your project and connect with you?
Yeah, you can find us at webacy.com. Follow me on Twitter at Maika Isogawa, full name on every social handle. Thank you.
Yeah, check us out at galaxy.com. It's Galaxy, but with a C. Twitter at Cooper_Kunz, my name. What about you?
Jasun Tate, blackalchemysolutions.group or blackalchemyso2 on Twitter. Black Alchemy Solutions on Instagram. Peace and blessings.
Thank you, everybody. Round of a hand.